Hey Orchinistas, welcome back to the channel Forever Orchids. My name is Tracy. Today is a special day. I have this Cattleya orchid here. It's been on my wish list. Let me show you, well, let me slow down. Woo, calm down. Okay, calm down, Tracy. Let me tell you what this plant is. This is Cattleya Pearl Harbor Orchidglade, and it has an award of merit by the American Orchid Society. This plant here I recently saw at a greenhouse that a friend of mine and I went to. So I'm going to show you a video now of the flowers on that plant in the greenhouse. I don't even know where to start to begin. I fell in love with this flower. There were 5 flowers on the plant, and I've never in my life seen a large Cattleya with 5 flowers that were in a 360-degree rotation, perfectly spaced apart. This is definitely an FCC worthy plant. What did you think? Do you agree with me? It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So I could not afford the plant at the greenhouse that it was for sale. Now, this is what is classified as an heirloom Cattleya. To me, an heirloom Cattleya is a rare vintage plant that it was crossed and registered with the Royal Horticultural Society in 1951. So when you're back in that time period, that's the big cassage era, they call it, for the Cattleyas. You couldn't go to an event without having a Cattleya. My own mother-in-law wore one in 1953 she had a big white Cattleya corsage for her wedding. And so it was just an era of grandiose. I'm going to digress a little bit, and you didn't come here to listen to all of that. That can be a video for a different day that we could talk more about heirloom plants and the great time period in the history of hybridizing orchids, especially corsage orchids. So this is one of those rare plants. You would find it maybe in public gardens possibly may have them, as well as more than likely private collectors have this in their collection. So I was fortunate enough to, one of the places that I volunteer at had this plant. And yesterday I was volunteering and I happened to see the plant, and another lady that I volunteer with, we saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh, do you know what they have here? Because half the time they don't even realize how great their orchid collection is. But anyway, and I was showing her a picture, and I was telling her, she was the one that went with me, and I was like, we just went to a place that had this in bloom. This is a fall bloomer. And so when we looked at the plant, we could not believe what we were looking at. They had it hanging, and it wasn't even in a pot or a basket. It was just bare root, for lack of better words. It one time was in a pot. All the roots were wrapped around in a circle, so you could tell that it was in a pot at one time. Pot fell off. Somebody took the pot off. I have no idea what happened to it. So the way they had it hanging, none of the pseudobulbs, the majority of them were not even upright. They were all going in this direction. They were growing under the mass of roots. And we knew that it really, if it ever bloomed, the presentation was just going to be horrible. I mean, you wouldn't even been able to see the flower. And so we decided to divide the plant. We got 3 divisions. Now, I just chose to take the larger portion of the pseudobulbs that looked like they were in a pot, and I repotted those into a clay pot. And then we had 2 other divisions. One of them, we're still trying to decide what we're going to do. We're going to try to mount it. And the way the pseudobulbs are growing, we just couldn't figure out in our allotted time frame what to do with the plant. So when we go back to volunteer, we will address that at that time. I asked them, I said, could I have a division of this plant? And they were like, absolutely, of course you can. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited. So the plant that I got has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pseudobulbs on it. And I divided it right here, put a little cinnamon on the division, and it's left it overnight so that that could dry up. Now, you kind of look at this and you go, okay, what do we do with it? You got 2 pseudobulbs that are going this way, pseudobulbs this way. Here's a new one. So, and also there's new roots. Oops, there's new roots right here. See those new roots? So there were lots of new roots all over the plant. So we definitely felt like it was a great time to go ahead, even though we're in the early winter, that it was a great time that we could go ahead and divide the plant and let the new roots go ahead and push out and would be okay. My plans for this plant is I am going to take these roots and wrap them as much as I can and get them down in this pot here. Now, I'm going to probably, and I'm going to do an overhead so that you guys can see this as I do it. I've got new roots coming out of this pseudobulb. This one hasn't started pushing out new roots yet, and I'm quite sure it will as this one is continuing to grow. Now, I've already soaked the plant in sea kelp extract, so the roots are pliable and I can bend them. But my plan is to get it down here into this pot, and then I'm literally going to let these 2 pseudobulbs, let me get my finger here so it'll stay. I'm going to let these two pseudobulbs stay where they are and just hang off. And one of my main reasons for doing that is just divided the plant. I've taken it out of the environment that it was in, and I'm bringing it into an indoor environment. Humidity is different, lighting is different here. So I don't want to take off any more pseudobulbs and have another exposed cut area for fungus and bacteria could potentially get in there. So there's just lots of reasons in my mind, but that's kind of the main one, is I'm just going to let these go. At another point in time, when I get more growth on this plant, it gets more established in the pot, I can cut these off and it won't be a problem. The plant would still survive and thrive, but it's in shock because it was just cut. So I'm not going to shock it anymore by cutting these pseudobulbs off. So let's go to the overhead and we'll talk more about how we're going to get it down into this pot. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to show you as I flip this plant over these 2 pseudobulbs here. Do you see all of that in there? All of this white? That is scale. It is awful. Now, the greenhouse does have a regular pest control a third-party company that comes in and sprays their plants. So what I'm going to do is just take some alcohol. I've got 70% rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to start with a Q-tip, and I am just going to wipe out as much of that. Now see how easy that came off? Did you see that? How easy that scale came off? That lets me know it is dead scale. And that's a good thing. That's an absolute good thing. So I'm just going to quickly get all of this out because I don't like it. I don't like the looks of it. And so we're just going to clean it out. Now that looks a little bit better now. I can take my fingers, or I could take a paper towel or tissue or something and wipe a little bit more out. But I wanted to show you, look at that damage in there from that scale. See that, all that brown in there? It's just a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. Okay, now we've got that cleared out. The next thing that I'm going to do is now look at any of the roots down in here that we may need to clip out. I've already sterilized my shears here, and I'm going to come in and just start trimming away at the roots here that I don't see any vellum running across it, and then I'll know that those are dead roots. And we're just going to kind of clean up a little bit. You can see there was still a little bit of bark. So this portion would have been down in the pot. Dead root just came right out just by touching, barely pulling on it. Now see, even though that one right there is pretty brown, it doesn't feel that mushy. Well, wait a minute. Wait. It was already broken off. Alrighty, I'm not planning on getting every single one out. Fine if you don't. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay. Alright. This is the portion that we cut. So that's going to go down into the pot. And I'm going to have these 4 pseudobulbs here upright. And let's take our roots here and wind them the best we can. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put a little bit of media down in the bottom of the pot. I've got some bark right here. This is some Orchiata bark. And we'll put some down in the bottom. If I had, it's probably not a bad idea the way this is going to go in there, to be honest, with this hanging over. I probably should really put some rocks down here in the bottom, and that'll help weight the plant down and weight the pot down. I think we'll probably be okay. Now, to do this and give myself enough space in the pot for new growth, because remember, right here's our new growth. So we're going to have, when this matures, we're going to have the eyes on it, either side, will go ahead and start swelling and push out new growth. This one here will probably do the same. We'll start swelling. Let me take off some of this sheathing here and see what we can see there, if we can see any viable eyes. Right now I'm seeing roots. So the eyes are going to be right up into here. So I want this to have plenty of room in this pot to grow for a year, maybe 2 would be nice. So I'm going to try to get these roots as flat as I can over to the side, which now puts these 2 leads more in the center of the pot. And it's a little tricky because I'm keeping these pseudobulbs over here, and they're going to be hanging down. So I'm going to grab something here to maybe help me. This is my pottery studio, so I'm going to grab a banding wheel and get that up off of the counter a little bit so I don't have to deal with these leaves right here too much pushing back against me as I try to put this in. Now, I'm going to try something here. There are several orchid growers that have, it's kind of a controversy of, because the majority of these roots, not the majority, all of these roots were aerial roots, Because remember, the mother plant that I took this division off of did not have any media hardly at all in it or around it. So these are aerial roots. So a lot of orchid growers will say, oh my gosh, you absolutely cannot put those in bark or any type of media because you'll kill them because they're aerial roots. I have done it both ways. So for right now, what I'm going to do is treat this where there's a lot of root mass. So we're going to put a little bit of bark. We've got some in the bottom. We're going to put a little bit of bark in here. But then each week, I'm going to add more bark to fill this up so that it gives those aerial roots time to adjust to now being enclosed in bark, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm going to do with this plant. Now, I am going to need to figure out a way to stake it once especially if I'm not going to have any media around the roots for several weeks. I need this plant to feel totally secure in its new environment, its new pot here, so that it will continue pushing out this new growth and these roots here. So I'm going to have to stake it, but for now, I'm just going to show you that we're going to take some of the bark, and I've got a lot of root mass here in the front, and I've got a lot of open space right now back between these bulbs, and that's where I'm going to put my media down in there and let it start filling up the side. Maybe about an inch is probably all I'm going to put in there for right now. Wiggle it down in any open spaces that I can kind of see back here in the back. Now, the mother plant, we loaded it up with bark yesterday. Didn't really try to do anything different with it. We just filled up the pot. It had lots of new roots coming out of it, and I will be taking in some seed kelp with me the next time that I go in. Now, that particular plant, here's another reason why I felt like it was okay to go on and put bark around those roots. The cut portion, where I cut with the pruners here, that rhizome is now above the pot. You know, it's kind of like maybe somewhere right in here. On this particular division, I've got a good inch of rhizome that got cut that's now down in the pot. So it's best that I don't fill up this with media around that, or otherwise I'm going to have rot in that rhizome that's going to transfer potentially to the rest of the plant. So back here, this pseudobulb here, straight down for another inch, is that rhizome that I cut. And I'm going to leave that open and totally exposed to the air for right now and let it give plenty of time for it to dry out completely. So that is all the bark I'm going to put in for right now. And it'll just be a matter of getting a stake in here. I've got a clip that I just don't think is going to work. It's all I've got in my arsenal of supplies. So I'm going to have to figure out another way to secure the plant in the pot. So I'm going to work on that, and when I get done, I'll come back and show you the finished repotting of this Heirloom Cattleya Pearl Harbor Orchidglade is the cultivar name. AM AOS. Alrighty, I'm finished staking up the plant and getting it tied in to the pot. So let me lift it up here gently and show you what I did. So I took some of the green wire and I ran it through 2 holes in the pot, brought it up and wrapped it around a pseudobulb and tied it tight. And that seems to be keeping the plant in the pot. Then what I did is I put a bamboo stake here, and I can adjust my Velcro tape I can adjust that up and down this pseudobulb here, and that's bringing this pseudobulb into more of an upright position. And that's also securing the plant. And I'm just going to remove some of the sheaths on here. We've got a good eye on the plant here that I can see as I take some of this pseudobulb off here. I can also cut off, not quite tall enough here. Prop it up a little bit more so I can get this turned around. And we can also cut off this old flower sheath. There's another way to kind of groom the plant, make it look a little bit nicer. We can take off some of this sheath here, if I can get at it. I'll get some of my finger at it, under it. This is a great place for bugs to hide. Is once your pseudobulbs have matured, then you can go and take off the pseudobulb sheath that's on there, as much of it as you can. There's chlorophyll, excuse me, in all of that green tissue. Okay, the new growth, what I've done is I've tried to, because it was arching so far this way, I'm going to see if I can train it to grow a little bit more upright. So I've put a stake down in the pot and just tied my Velcro tape around here so that I can, as you'll see here, this is the position once I put the plant in the pot. This is the position that it is in. And so I put the Velcro tape. The pseudobulb hadn't hardened off, so it has some flexibility. So you can take your pseudobulb, and as soon as you start feeling a little resistance, that's about as far as you're going to be able to straighten it up. And so I'm just going to tighten up that on there. Whoops. That's about as best as it's going to do. And I'm going to keep a little gap here between the metal and the pseudobulb. Something was already rubbing against this pseudobulb as it was growing, and I don't want to damage the pseudobulb anymore by having this metal press up against it. So I'm just going to give it a gap right there. And honestly, for now, this is the best that I think I can do on this plant. Now, I just touched these, and we've still got a little bit of wobbliness going on. So I may have to figure out another way. But once we get, over the next few weeks, get more bark in here, it will help stabilize the plant. So for right now, the only thing I have left to do is just put my tag on the plant. And I'm just going to come in here on one of the pseudobulbs. It's fine. Or I can turn around and pop the tag down in the pot. That'll be good enough too. I already had a hole in the tag, so that'll work. So that, to me, is for now the best that I'm going to do for this plant. And we're going to let those roots here continue to grow. I hope this was helpful. If you wish, please like and subscribe to my channel. I am trying to grow the channel. I've only been on YouTube since July of 2023. So I'm trying to grow the channel, and your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, happy orchid growing. Bye.